Okay, great. So, Ben, hi, we have Ben in the house. Ben, how are you doing?
Doing great, Ashot. Thank you. How are you this morning? Well, this
Yeah,
morning for me, afternoon for you.
it's afternoon for me. Yes, it's all great. Great. So, Ben, why don't you share with us? When we started to work, what was the main challenge that you had, and how do you feel about it now?
Well, Ashot, should I use the words that I would have used before our coaching and training or after?
Yes, go ahead.
When I was I had originally reached out to you because I was at a time in my life where uh the company that I was at, that I am at, had made a bunch of promises that they then did a 180 on, and impacted my overall compensation package. I had a daughter at the time who was in a I've got four children, and at the time I think they were roughly 18, 16, 12 or 13, and 9 or 10. And so had a lot going on with the family. Daughters in toxic relationships. My youngest, I've got three girls and a boy. My youngest is a boy. He was dealing with being bullied at school. And I felt on it, quite frankly, a little bit bullied at work, because they knew that the level of work that I did, and the contributions that I made, and the loyalty that I had, I felt like was taken advantage of. And there just was a lot going on. And when I say my language then versus now, I remember telling you, I feel like I just need to talk to somebody. And by the way, I had some side consulting gigs that I was trying to decide, should I chase these? Should I stick with where I'm at? And I wanted to bounce those ideas off of somebody that looked like they had gone there and been there and done that. And your resume stood out to me for that. But more importantly, I knew that I needed something bigger. I needed something that could impact all of those things. And one of the things that stood out to me at the time was the fact that you were certified in Eckhart Tolle, and I had happened to read The Power of Now, and loved the idea of that. But it just felt like before that, I remember telling you this, I just feel like I need to get my life back on the right track. And it was there just was a lot going on. I remember feeling stressed and anxious, and wasn't sleeping much. It was taking having a toll on my relationship with my family. And so I just needed somebody that could kind of hold my hand and walk me through some of that.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. I didn't realize actually that, that was one of the points in your selection process about the work on the mindfulness at the time. So that's good to know. I'd love to speak about it a bit, about the impact of the mindfulness, that, how it can impact on your life, on your career. And in particular, what you mentioned about finding that, the sweet spot, the balance between, all those challenges in career and a family life. With you, I mean, look at you having that, aside from having that senior leadership position in a big corporation, and having all of those very interesting entrepreneurial ideas coming to you all the time, and thinking about those, and having a beautiful and a big family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can
Yeah.
you can you talk a bit about that, please?
Yeah. The mindfulness is, I mean, it's a really hard, it's a difficult question to answer, that I'll do my best at answering, because that ended up being, the I think the most impactful thing that you and I did in all of our coaching. I mean, you obviously helped me and pointed me the right direction on a number of different things. And by the way, for those listening and viewing, the way that a shot points you in the right direction is through questions. And it's just a very interesting way how we would get to where we were going, through the just very in tune and in touch questions that you would ask in the moment. But the mindfulness really became, I may have mentioned this to you before, but at the time I felt like I could not have one more thing on my plate. I just had too many things going on. And in a past life, one of the careers that I had was selling consulting and coaching through the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I don't know if you've ever read that book or know of that book, but one of the habits is called sharpen the saw. And it talks about, amongst other things, one of the examples that he gives is sometimes we get so busy that we don't have enough time to put gas in our car, and then we find ourselves stranded on the side of the road somewhere because we didn't stop and sharpen the saw and put gas in the car. And so I with all of those things on my plate, I just thought I can't add one more thing. And I wouldn't have known this beforehand, but having gone through the coaching and just the things that we've touched on throughout our coaching, was that it almost became the mindfulness almost became the plate that I stacked everything else on. And it helped through that lens. It helped, you mentioned balance, having a large family. I remember one of the things that we talked about in one of our coaching sessions was being more present when you're at your job, doing your job in those meetings. Because I remember at the time, Ashot, I was so frustrated. I had meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and it was just back to backs all day long. And I was getting burnt out. And I think you asked me the question, well, when do you get your work done? And I said that it was, that it was usually after hours. And you challenged me to be more present in the moment, in those meetings that I am. Let myself be there, let my mind be in the meeting, and then not allow myself to work outside of the hours that I had set. And I remember you saying, set whatever those hours are. If it's 8 to 8, if it's 8 to 6, if it's 8 to whatever, if it's 6 to 6, whatever that time slot is, dedicate those hours, and then you're fully present, you're fully there at that time. Because allowing ourselves to work after hours in the back of our minds allows us to slack off, so to speak, in some of those meetings. And when I say slack off, I know the executives you're working with, as certainly I did. It's not slacking off. There are just so many things going on and just in the back of your mind at all times that it's really hard to focus on what's being said in front of you and not be thinking about this, existential crisis that's going on here in this other aspect of your life, whether that be at work or at home or anywhere else. And this mindfulness practice of just being present in those meetings has helped so much with the execution of these things. It's helped. It's been really the main, the main theme in my life that has allowed me to have that balance. Because when I don't give myself permission to work after hours and be present in the hours that I have set, I ended up being better at my job, being more timely in my job, and then being able to be more present with my family as well. So the mindfulness really, going into our coaching, it was a little bit like, I don't know if I have time to do some of these things, if this is something that's going to slow things down or speed things up. And one of the things, and I, as I set up some of the issues that I was facing, I said, I just felt like I needed to get my life back on the right track. And I remember it had to have been our very first meeting where you told me there's not a right track or a wrong track. It's your track. It's your life. It just is. And for whatever reason, that just turned a light on for me, and was able to add to the meetings that we had in the future. But the mindfulness I think is the key aspect to all of it.
Yeah, that's such a powerful point. You've done an amazing job at applying all those practices into every life situation. But that's interesting that most people don't do that. Most people just consider this is something that, okay, I will do it when I will have time, but now I have problems to sort. I don't have time for that. And I hear that again and again. And one of my favorite quotes on that is that I say to people that what Mahatma Gandhi said when he said, today I have a particularly important and busy day. So instead of meditating 1 hour in the morning, I'm going to meditate 2 hours.
Yeah.
So just to explain that this is not, you don't do that when everything is right, as if it's some kind of a benefit or a perk for you doing everything well, but rather it's your tool. And what you mentioned about the time is interesting, because for the people like you, where you are in your life stage and your career stage, being one of the top leaders in businesses, um, you don't manage time. You got to manage your focus and your energy,
That's
right?
right. Yep.
Because we just all have the same amount of time. But what we tend to do, we tend to try to squeeze more we try to manage time, trying to organize ourselves better, while when we're already at the top of the top of the population in terms of our ability to organize. So whatever helped us to get where we are is not necessarily the same tool that is going to get us to make another leap forward in efficiency. So it's more about managing the energy and managing your focus, and yeah, what you mentioned about mindfulness, like being there.
That's
So
right.
yeah.
And I would say, Ashot, that that last point you just made about the focus, um, it's it's it was pretty amazing to me. And I'm not perfect at it. And I think that's the other thing for people to understand is I remember learning about meditation and being present and mindfulness years ago. But it's a little bit scary and intimidating to say, well, I don't know how to meditate. I've never done that before. And is it going to take, you talk about Gandhi saying, I've got so much that I'm not going to do 1 hour, I'm going to do 2. In those few minutes, the amount of time that it took was just a few minutes, but the amount of things that it covered and prepared me for has been really just astounding. And the amount of focus that it has also helped me have in those meetings. When you're fully present, it's incredible how much you can pick up on and how much you can retain. That I remember, wondering at other points, like, how am I going to be able to stay on top of this? Well, just being that practice of presence and that state of mind has just helped in a number of different ways. But I think it's also important to just note quickly that it doesn't have to be big and scary. The better you get at it, the longer you want to go, just because you see the benefits and you start making the time to meditate a little bit longer and to go a little bit deeper. But in the beginning, for those that might be on the fence and thinking, well, I'm not sure I'm into this. Yeah, I wasn't either. I didn't know anything about it. But like I said, we started with just a minute or two, and you walked me through it. It was a guided meditation where you're telling me what to do and how to be more present and things to focus on. And even to the point, I don't know if we'll get to this in the interview, but I remember being so strapped for time all the time that I would vent my frustration that the universe was out for me and against me, because I get stopped at so many red lights in between one meeting and the next. And
I remember that very well.
you giving me the insight and idea of, listen, that can actually be a huge gift that the universe is giving you, and just reminding you at every one of those to just slow down and just be present in that moment. And I also remember telling you in one of our coaching sessions that it was amazing that I got angry that the light turned green so quickly in after using that practice, because I went from hating these moments to actually, okay, this is a quick minute for me to take 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds and be present. And then it didn't seem like the light would stay red long enough for me to do what I wanted to do. And so then I'd be frustrated. But but it doesn't have to be these long things. It's just the state of mind is something that everybody can and should be doing regularly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a very important point, that it's not something that people have a lot of expectations now. And, they think oh, am I doing this right? Am I getting the result? And also from one meditation to another, at one you feel like you've done a great job, and another like you've gone deeper than during the other one. So, it's criticizing yourself, but it's all about getting the ability that being still and enjoying it. And at some point when it stops being, in the beginning, like with anything else new, we need to go through the process of making sure we do something, right? So we need to put a reminder in the calendar, or one way or the other, just to make sure that we do that. But once you get to the point when you don't need to, when it's not a chore anymore, when it's not something in your calendar, like we all have busy calendars, right? And we have to-do lists, and we have different apps and everything, and we just, if something comes up and we say, okay, I need to make sure I don't forget about that, and I put it in the calendar, or on my reminders list, or on my to-do list, or somewhere else, or a notice. And once this becomes one of those things that you doesn't belong to any of those lists, once
Right.
it becomes just a way of being, because you just want to be, then it really has a huge impact. And no matter how well your brain thinks you're doing or not, you're just enjoying it. So yeah,
That's a great point.
that's great. And that impacts not just the work, right? Not just ability to be present during the meeting, but for me, for example, is just being with my kids as well. Is just because what we tend to do is, then when we are at work, we think about what we haven't done enough in our family, or with our kids, or in a relationship. And then when we are at home, we keep thinking about those meetings or deadlines or something that happens at work, right? So that both worlds end up suffering from not being really present.
Yeah, I would say that the impact that it has had with my family has been, greater than the impact that it has had at work. Although work has been phenomenal as well, but it's I remember when we first started discussing some of those things, and you had mentioned something to do, or it could have been in the business setting that we were talking about it. And that's what the other thing that I really loved about your coaching and approach, Ashot, is I had a list of business things, getting back to the list of all the things we want to touch. I remember having a list of things that I wanted to accomplish with you, that I wanted to check off of my box. And I lost those things changed pretty drastically once I learned this new approach and this new idea. And one of the things that we had talked about, you talked about being present, was when we are with the family, like you just mentioned, be with the family. When we're at work, be at work. And one of those days, I had taken my little boy out to dinner, just he and I were just sitting there talking, and I practiced mindfulness and being present while we were at dinner. And I just had this incredible moment of, I still remember it. I remember everything about that moment, to the point of being so present, noticing the little freckles on his young face, and just being filled with this tremendous amount of love for this human that I, am lucky enough to get the chance to raise and influence. And I've never done that. I mean, I've always loved my kids more than life itself, but I've never really been present with them at that level before you and I had met. And that richness and of the relationship, and it's hard to put into words, Ashot, the impact that it has had and continues to have throughout my life. And that's the other thing that I would say to anyone considering, coaching with you, is just do it. Just do it, and you will find the time. We all have the same 24 hours out of a day. You'll find the time. And that is the other thing, is I don't know if this matters, but I'm on the western side of the United States. You're in London, and yet we find the time to work for both of us in our schedules. And you were always very flexible with it. But if you're on the fence, the impact that you have had on me and my life and my family's life, even if we never spoke again after today, it would be life lasting. It would have an impact on my life throughout the rest of it, and my relationships as well. So anyone sitting on the fence, I mean, it's something to it's something that you've got to try, and it will be something that you never will regret. You'll never regret it.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it. But that being said, you've been amazing, honestly. I mean, you consistently went through. I remember, every session we had, you consistently went through every life situation, every challenge that life was throwing at you, and applying those principles and leaving them and coming back to me and then applying them again, and dealing with it. And as a result, you reap the benefits. So that was amazing. And well, I mean, for me, it was a privilege and a pleasure to witness and be part of your journey. So yeah, great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ashot. Yeah, thank you. It's been you talk about those life situations. I remember at the time one of the personal experiences that was going on was my little boy, who's just he's just a kind soul. He does not have a mean thought or an unkind thought or an unkind bone in his body. He's just a very gentle human, and he's in 6th grade. And it's that's an age where kids they're pretty mean. They don't know that they're being mean, but they're they can say and do some very hurtful things. And I remember being so frustrated with him getting bullied, and I don't even remember exactly what you said, Ashot, or how you said it. That's the other crazy thing about our sessions, is I always walked away with how did I learn as much as I did in that hour that we just spent on the Zoom, because I would continue to digest and chew on the things that we discussed for days after. Still, I mean, I still think about the things that you have said, but one of those was, if I screw this up, you can re-educate people on, but this is how it was impactful to me, is when I am viewing the world through that lens of trying to control everything, instead of just looking at it just is. Those things are just happening. They're not good or bad. We label them as good or bad, but they just are. It's just happening. And when we view our life and those events through the lens of I'm a victim, why do these things continue to happen? Then that's really what we start seeing more of. And so focusing on my son getting bullied was actually making the situation worse for him, because of the way that I would label the things that were happening to him, the way that I would label how he needed to stand up for himself and how he needed to fight for himself. And just being able to step back and view that through a different lens has changed everything in mine and his relationship, in his life, in his, I think, security, his self-esteem. And so it's just the impact that you have had from our business coaching, the things that we talked about for work, which is why I originally hired you, just had such an impact on on each of those aspects. So I appreciate you. I appreciate the kind words and pointing that out. But it really has been a tremendous experience.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've touched one of the most, I think, challenging aspects um, that we all go through about the acceptance. And when when Eckhart Tolle said that, is there anything more absurd than resist what already is? But one of the biggest myths that people have is that by accepting what is, it means you give up. It means you accept what this situation that already is can lead to. And that's exactly the opposite. By accepting what already is, you become aligned with the flow. You stop resisting, you stop draining your energy to resisting what already is, whether you like it or not. And you become empowered to deal and to change and to act, actually, nothing but give up. It's act, and as a result, change the situation that you don't like. But
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Or I would even say, or to not act. You talk
When
about
exactly when it's not required. Yeah.
yeah, you talk about saving the energy. I mean, I just remember spending so much energy on what has already happened, that can't be, that can't be changed. It already is. And if it's in the past, it's certainly not worth dwelling on, because it has already happened. It's great to learn from it and, use those experiences to learn from, but to dwell on those is just a waste of energy as well. But that's another thing that, when you don't accept what is, and you spend all that energy, as you mentioned, trying to influence or change that, it's time wasted. And when there are a lot of folks that we talk about this a lot, not having time, well, we waste so much time in our lives that we don't even realize that we're wasting, and so much energy in our lives that we don't realize we're wasting, trying to control things that are not able to be controlled, or trying to change things that have already happened. By being present, it gives us the tools that we need to act now in the way things are, or as they really are, which has a much greater chance or likelihood on influencing things in the future, and just reserving and saving some of those resources. Because what I realized in my experience is that a lot of times where my attention went and where my energy went, once I accepted it as it already is, there were plenty of things that I just thought, I started seeing them for what they really are, not for what I thought they might be or what I thought they might become. I viewed those and learned to look at those as, this is just what is. Why am I spending so much time, energy, and focus on trying to change him? That it doesn't matter. It's just not, it's not important. And it freed up a lot of not only time, but headspace. It freed up headspace to decide, that's not even my thing to stress about. So it sounds absurd, looking back on it, like, why was I ever trying to do that? But it was such a frustration in the moment when we first started, that's one of those little changes. And I appreciate you bringing it up, because it's one of those little changes that I don't necessarily think about that impacted my life, but it is absolutely one of those small things where it's just changed so many different aspects in my life, and that's certainly being one of them.
Yeah, great. Ben, thanks a lot for your wisdom. Thanks for your time. It's been really great. So
Yes.
I look forward to your next chapter and seeing you again.
Likewise, as always, Ashot, it's a pleasure talking to you.